Hello, my name is Andrew Keane. Welcome to Keane on America, the daily show about everything that matters, with the world's leading commentators and thinkers. Hello, everybody. It's hardly news that the world is in crisis, although that's what the New York Times is telling us. The question is, if it is indeed in crisis, what comes next? What kind of nomics will follow our chaotic nomics of the current age? The New York Times running all sorts of pieces on the future of energy and politics and economics and global affairs. But perhaps the New York Times has missed the point. Maybe they don't really understand what next. Maybe what's next is actually much simpler than some of the learned people writing in the New York Times. Maybe the future is Taylor Swift, the iconic female pop star who is perhaps better known than anyone in the world, except perhaps for Donald Trump. Certainly my guest today believes that Swiftynomics is next. She is a professor of economics at the University of Kansas and the author of a new book, Swiftynomics, How Women Mastermind and Redefine Our Economy. Misty Heggeness is joining us from Kansas. Congratulations, Misty, on the new book. What exactly is or will be Swiftynomics?
Yeah, Andrew, thank you for having me. Swiftynomics is really just about taking a really deep dive look into how women behave as economic agents. Taylor Swift is the muse of Swiftynomics and is just a really prime example of how women maneuver in society today.
So it sounds to me like a rather traditional feminist economics. Is that what it is, or is there something more to it?
So it's definitely that, but I would argue there's quite a bit of feminists who might be put off by Taylor Swift and might not really spend time thinking about the way that she works because she's, all pink and glittery. Her business mantra is very traditional, and she earns lots of money. So it incorporates feminist economics, but I feel like it kind of more or less walks the line between traditional economics and feminist economics.
I think someone once wrote a song called Walk the Line, Misty. That's the thing I don't get, and maybe you can help me understand Taylor Swift. On the one hand, as you note, she's a very traditional female star, blonde, attractive, often underdressed, at least in public. On the other hand, she seems to speak of the future. So is she traditional or revolutionary, or a revolutionary traditionalist?
She's both. And I think that's one of the things that makes her unique. She very much leans into all of the traditional ways that we expect women to behave, or that society would like women to behave. Again, if you look at her clothing style and the way that she comports herself, and, you think about the fact that she likes cats and glitter, all of these are very girly, traditional concepts. But when you look at how she's maneuvered in her career, I would say she's anything but traditional girly. So she has time and time again been exposed to barriers in her career where people have had alternative expectations for her that are different than the expectations she has for herself and for her talent and for her music. And she has traditionally gone against the grain and really chosen not to believe the stories that other people were telling her, other people expected of her. And you see that in the way that she bought back her first 6 albums, finally. You see that in the way that she pushed back against this Colorado DJ who, inappropriately grabbed her rear end during a photo shoot. So I think she's confusing for a lot of folks because she does have these two personas that at face value appear very on the opposite ends of the spectrum. But I do think that this is, again, the tightrope that women walk. And if we want to look at the direction that women are going in terms of being economic agents, in terms of supporting themselves, I think we have a lot to learn from her.
Do women and men differ in their take on her? I mean, she has a real history. You can look her up on Wikipedia. She was born in, of all places, West Reading, Pennsylvania. So she's a real person. But can men appreciate her, or is it a problem? Is she, in a sense, the problem with how many men treat women, and so they don't quite get her, and women, or many women at least, see in the glittery and pink Taylor Swift something different from what men see? And of course, not all women like Taylor Swift. I know my wife is not a big fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of men that do like Taylor Swift. So if you look at her fan base,
I know a lot of men like dressing in pink and looking glittery, don't they, Misty?
Well, so I mean, I think if you look at the demographic of her fans, it is really universal. We tend to think that it's really just young girls who are attracted to Taylor Swift and fans of hers, but she really runs the gamut in terms of demographics. And I think that speaks to a lot to the depth of her storytelling and the kind of boldness of her talent in crafting lyrics and in writing songs.
But in that sense, she doesn't strike me as being revolutionary. I mean, there've always been women or men who have been bold in writing songs. You still haven't convinced me that there is such a thing as Swiftynomics. And I know there is one, so perhaps you might be a little bit more Swifty in your analysis of all this.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I talk about and speak to in the book is a couple of key components about Taylor that make her such a driving economic agent. One of them is her authenticity and the way that she connects with her fans, her authenticity in connecting with her fans, in making sure that she's providing meaning for them. So it's not only just the talent of writing songs, but also the talent of making sure that those songs are connecting with her fans. It's her marketing ability to see, when we all first started in social media, that there was a space there where she could really connect with fans beyond what the entertainment industry and the music industry executives were doing. So, she has found and has always kind of had this passion, and she's used it to propel her forward, and not just her independently, but she's used it to propel all of us forward with her. If you were to watch the End of an Era docuseries that just came up on Disney Plus this in December, I think you see a lot of really key critical components that make her such a strong leader within teams and within community. And, her ability to see the vision, her ability to amplify staff and all the people working around her, her ability to bring them along with her, I think are all of the key components of what women who really harness their economic agency and who really tap into their authentic selves have similar characteristics to what we're seeing with Taylor. And then this idea of reinvention. So reinvention and masterminding. So there's three core elements, I think, with Taylor Swift that really have excelled her, promoted her into a billionaire. One is this authenticity. The second is her ability to reinvent when there's a roadblock in her way and not be stymied by it. And then her ability to mastermind the long game. So even if in the moment, in the short run, she is not able to get around a roadblock or get around a boulder that's in her way, she is able to mastermind how in the long run to get around it. Again, you can look at the examples of her finally buying back her first 6 catalogs.
I know you've written about this buying back of the catalogs, although lots of, I don't know, all female artists, certainly male artists have done that, from Dylan to Springsteen to the Beatles. Sharon Stone recently gave an interesting speech full of F-bombs and in the kind of speeches that only Sharon Stone can give. But she described Taylor Swift in the speech as a decent person, and that gives her her timeless quality. That's a very American thing. Is in a way this marketing skill of Swift, what you call the authentic. It sounds like a business self-help narrative. Is she the Jimmy Stewart, the female Jimmy Stewart in American culture? Americans have always been nostalgic and open to the idea of decency. Not all cultures, I think, value decency in the same way America does, maybe because of its democratic culture.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something to be said for that. I think that at least in the US and in the US economy, and we're thinking about consumers and the kind of content that they want and the kind of content they consume, there's something to be said for consumers feeling not only like they're purchasing an item, you know, whether it's an album or a piece of clothing, et cetera, but they want to also feel like, you know, they're purchasing a part of this other person's identity, or that their purchase somehow is reminiscent of some sort of value that they are putting forth in the world. And so, but, you know, through that purchase. And I think in that sense, you know, it's really hard to find anything around Taylor that isn't, you know, really kind of good and, you know, authentic. But I think with Taylor it goes a little bit further than that, because this is not at a surface level. If you really dig into kind of the lore of Taylor, she's very intellectual, and a lot of her art is based off of historical characters. So she wrote a song about Clara Bow, who was called the It Girl, was a silent movie actress in the 1920s. She wrote a song about Edita Saxville, who was a woman who continually got divorced and remarried and was nicknamed the Bolter. She has a song called The Bolter. So, you know, I think Elizabeth Taylor in her most recent album, The Life of a Showgirl. So I think part of what Taylor does looks surfacey, but when you kind of dig and scratch at the surface a little bit, you really see that she's trying to lift up and portray voices that aren't often heard in dominant culture. And one of the biggest voices that is often not heard in dominant culture, you know, because of this idea that we live in a society and developed a society that was based around essentially for most purposes, the needs of men outside of, you know, especially when you're talking about outside of the home. And so, you know, all of these things that Taylor does that are so intentional, I think have an endearing quality for her fans, but they also, you know, create meaning and propel not only Taylor forward, but, you know, anybody who's in her orbit, even if you happen to, you know, be somebody who makes sparkly stickers for her face and Taylor wears them, or you happen to be somebody who, you know, runs a small business jewelry store and her fiance buys, you know, an engagement ring from you. There is just a big ripple effect. I think the fact that you know, women have so much economic power today is one of the reasons why Taylor is so successful, because they really over-identify with her in many aspects and are willing to, you know, spend the money to go to the Eras tour. They're willing to spend the money on stories that are relatable and give them joy.
Yeah, and I wonder the way you're presenting it you're presenting her feminism as a very traditional kind of feminism. It could have been the feminism 50 years ago of Gloria Steinem and of first generation women's rights, whether there's something kind of reassuring about her, and whether in some ways perhaps she's the product of a culture, almost unspoken, as if, you know, women can have power but they can be like Taylor Swift and not be very troubling. I mean, you don't need me to tell you, Misty, that there's a crisis of maleness in the United States at the moment. A few years ago, we had Richard Reeves on the show, who's written the book about it called On Boys and Men. When you look at the Oscar nominations for this year, it strikes me that all the best performances, all the strongest performances are by women, whether it's Jessie Buckley in Hamnet, or Kate Hudson in Song Sung Blue, certainly Chase Infinity in One Battle After the Other. The women are more together than, I don't know, Timothée Chalamet or Leonardo DiCaprio, in spite of their performances. These are troubled, broken men, and the women aren't. So could it be argued that, I mean, she's clearly a remarkable woman, remarkable businesswoman, remarkable artist, but could one argue that she is a product of the shifting gender norms in the 2020s as much as a promoter of these changes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, one of the things that I think has happened with, feminism and feminist thought today is there's really been a lot of change that has happened outside of the home in, our workplaces. The amount of kind of explicit, overt sexism has really been reduced compared to, the 1950s, even 1960s. But we haven't done a lot of shifting and changing in our home. And so I think one of the major challenges today is we've really equipped women with how to harness their own economic agency and how to use that to live, their best life. But we haven't really had these discussions with men and what that means in terms of the relationships between men and women. And so I do think she is the future of thinking about relationships. I mean, I personally, I don't really care what happens with the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce relationship, but I personally love watching it.
This is the relationship with a professional footballer who plays
yes,
on the team up
City
in your state, in Kansas.
Yes. And their relationship, I think, is really a prime example of what modern relationships that work today look like, because there's space for both of them to be their own independent economic force, and there's space for them to spend time together, to do things that they enjoy together. It's very different from the traditional model of a household where a woman stays home and doesn't work for pay and takes care of the family and the kids, and the man goes out to the office or, his job out on the street, wherever that is, and works for pay and brings back the money to provide for the family. The type of relationships that are really of younger generations and that are really sticking today tend to be these types of relationships where people are partnering up, not based on kind of the efficiency of women stay home, men stay at work, or men go out to work, but really it's based on this idea that both are economically independent and they come together because they enjoy each other's company and like the same things and want to share their household together.
What's the message then in that? I take your point on Swift's association with a professional athlete. Is the message to men that you can have a famous rich girlfriend or wife and still maintain your independence? Or is the message to women that you can be independent and wealthy and still have a love life?
I mean, I think both of those messages can be true at the same time. And I think, one of the things that we need to get better at as a society is really clarifying those messages for young boys and young girls. Taylor oftentimes, I think, for her fans, leads by example. And this is, her current relationship is maybe just one example of leading by example of how we can make modern relationships work when the dynamic around economics and power of men and women within households has, adjusted and shifted so much.
You wrote an interesting piece recently about the real force of Taylor Swift. It was in Time. Isn't her own economics, it's those of her fans. She's not the first or the last artist to be driven by a democratized media landscape of her fans. But why for you, Misty, is Swiftynomics as much about her fans as it is about Swift herself?
Yeah. When the Eras tour was going on, it was going city to city throughout the US and then globally. One thing that kind of was becoming really a pet peeve for me was this idea that people were saying Taylor Swift is moving mountains in local economies wherever she goes. And um, at face value, okay. But the only reason why we're able to say that about her is because she is so connected and has such a hot fan base that wants to consume anything related to her, that they're willing to fork out, thousands of dollars for tickets. They're willing to travel to another city, stay in a hotel there, go get their hair done in the hair salon there, go to the craft store, buy the beads to make the bracelets to prepare themselves for the concert. And, it seems to me that in the past we've talked about women's consumption in a very traditional mold of, again, think about 1950s and Mad Men. Consumer marketers will target women for cleaning products or vacuum cleaners or things that they can use in their home to make their improve their life or reduce the amount of time they spend doing domestic labor. And that's really not what's going on anymore in terms of how marketers are thinking about different types of bases. And again, it's one of the things that Taylor did so effectively when she was very young. She went into the country music industry and said, I want to sing country songs and I want to write country music songs about teenage girls. And the country music executives said, thanks, but no thanks, because they didn't really see any value in targeting teenage girls as a model. Taylor proved them wrong, clearly. And she just continues to prove us all wrong. She continues to really be keen at tapping into this economic engine of, female consumerism, which today is more around let's purchase things that give us joy, like going to a concert or some of these other, buying music that has lyrics that I can totally relate to. She just does this very well.
When it comes to many artists, especially recent biopics, we've been presented them in terms of their advisors, sometimes very good, sometimes rather less good, and the relationships with those advisors. Where does Swift get her advice, or is she just so smart and independent that she doesn't need advisors?
I think she probably doesn't need advisors, but I think she has a strong set of advisors around her. They tend to be her family. So, her mother, her father, her brother are, her. And again, if you watch the docuseries on Disney Plus, the last episodes talk about how, Taylor Swift is a family business. And she says in the documentary, the only reason why she's been able to be as successful as she has today is because she's always had her family's 100% support and commitment to helping her get there. But she also has a rumored publicist who seems to be like very keen, and her name is Tree Payne. And I think that Tree has really helped within, it's really hard to be a woman and super successful and in the public eye just because of all of the kind of misogynistic ways that we think about the world. People will focus on who she's dating, or they'll focus on why is she making, an infinite number of variants to her albums, and she's so greedy, when we wouldn't say that of men. But Tree, her publicist, has been really successful at tampering down the negative rhetoric in the media and at a larger scale, and keeping the focus on Taylor and her talent and her music. And so, she clearly has advisors, but I think she's also pretty savvy herself.
Well, it's nice to have a strong advisor called Tree. I'm not going to make any oak jokes, Misty. The more you talk about her, the more traditional she becomes, or a more sort of the nostalgia of her getting the advice from her family. I mean, many great sports stars, media stars, artists, musicians, film stars, they get their advice from their families, and their families are really either dumb or self-interested and blow up their careers. Is this something ultimately, I mean, I take your point about Swiftynomics and all the rest of it, but isn't there something ultimately rather nostalgic about Swift. I know she's not a big fan of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump isn't a big fan of hers or many of her fans. But is it coincidental that we have Swiftynomics and this remarkable success of this artist at a time of MAGA dominance in American politics?
Well, I mean, Taylor Swift has been a dominant force, for at least a couple of decades now. So it's not a new phenomenon, at least definitely not as new as the, mega vibes that are running through the U.S. today.
Although, just to interrupt, I got to be careful in these sorts of shows, Misty, not to interrupt too much and be too male. But I mean, we've had many people on the show arguing that the origins of MAGA and Trump go back at least 40, maybe 50 years, certainly back to the early 70s. So it's not as if this thing happened overnight.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's totally true. I think it's just recently acquired, this really outward-facing power within society and voice. But yeah, it's definitely been brewing for a long time. And now I forgot what your question was.
My question was about her as an artifact of nostalgia, maybe self-created, maybe appropriated by the culture, is ultimately a rather conservative figure speaking to another America of certainty, the opposite of our chaotic age where everyone knew who everyone was. Now, it doesn't mean that the woman was in the kitchen or sweeping the floor, but it does, what she provides is some degree of certainty and decency in a world which is uncertain and often indecent.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely provides that. I think, at the end of the day, all of us, the power that we all exude, whether it's economic or otherwise, is really just, our own thoughts and our opinions and how we present those and how we interact with others and have discussions around those topics, especially when there's disagreement. And I don't think that Taylor Swift shies away from that. I think that, she fits in really, whether it's this time or any other time. I think she fits into the narrative because again, she's just authentically who she is. And, I don't know many artists who would be so adamant about loving cats, but she doesn't really care. And so she just continues to be who she is, whether that fits some traditional mold or not. I don't think she really cares. She just wants to live in a world where she's able to keep on producing her music at the level of skill and talent that she has been, where people keep on listening to it, where she's able to live her life around the people and the things that give her joy. And, we should all aim and strive for that.
You don't seem much of a fan, Misty. I'm teasing you. The other thing that occurs to me about Swift, again, coming back to this theme of being different or conservative or nostalgic in some way or other, is that much of her economic value, and you've written about this, many others, even Paul Krugman of all people has written a couple of pieces about this, is her ability to generate concert revenue. The fact that I'm sure she generates massive revenue online through digital and she uses social media, but at the same time, ultimately people want to see her in person. So it speaks, in a way, Taylor Swift is a narrative about the revenge of analog, about people's need not just to do stuff digitally, but to actually meet in person. It's also true of her fans. So in Swift, is there a kind of an element of this yearning for the analog?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's a really great performer, and she really focuses on trying to create an experience that will be meaningful for her fans and that they will enjoy together. And, fans clearly want this. It's why the Eras Tour was so successful. And, when you compare the Eras Tour, I mean, you've got like a 3-hour plus performing.
You might just, because not everyone's going to be familiar with this tour. When was the tour, that tour particularly, Miss?
Yeah, so the Eras Tour started in 2023 in the US. She did a whole round in the US, and then she went abroad end of 2023, and then throughout 2024, and then the very last end of 2024, she came back to the US for a couple of concerts and then went to Canada. And you know, the concert sold out wherever she went. You know, huge demand for tickets. You know, the secondary market surged with the pricing surged in the secondary market for ticket resales. And you know, I think when you look at that and you see what you're getting with that type of concert, and then you maybe compare it to some of the other concerts that are out there, there is a difference in quality. There's a difference in, you know, dedication to investing in whether it's the visual lighting, whether it's a stage where the floor is also a screen so that people high up in the stands can see you know, what's going on down below them. There's just a lot of detail, I think, put into making sure that the fan experience was top notch. And again, just, you know, reiterating that this is one of the things that Taylor Swift does so well, is reading and understanding and knowing her fan base and being able to, you know, provide them with the type of experience that is going to keep them interested in her.
Yeah, again, she's not the first. Rolling Stones, of course, have made many fortunes on touring as old people. I recently saw Bruce Springsteen in San Francisco, 70-year-old prancing on stage, which I thought was slightly absurd, but maybe I'm the killjoy here. What is the future? Let's end, Misty, on the future of this woman. I mean, she's still quite young, born in 1989. What would you expect the next chapter or couple of chapters in Swift's history? Is she still going to be on the road when she's in her 70s or even 80s, like the Rolling Stones?
Or like Dolly Parton or Madonna,
who's also an iconic American figure in her own way.
Yeah. And I just want to mention, you know, Madonna did the Eras Tour before the Eras Tour, right? Madonna had Blonde Ambition, which was essentially similar to the Eras Tour in the sense that it was theatrical in nature, and it went over the different, you know, multitude of albums that Madonna had at the time. So, you know, again, we're just reiterating the fact that she's not necessarily doing anything new, but she is targeting a new audience, I will say, in that a lot of these other artists,
a more diverse audience. I know that, you know, she's some people might at least say that, you know, she's very popular with women, particularly with white women. Black women are a little bit more ambivalent. Do you think that she could, as she continues to reinvent herself, she could make herself a more multicultural figure?
Yeah, I mean, she could. You know, I think the thing, you know, if we think about what are we looking at in terms of Taylor Swift's future, you know, we have to remember that she's female, and so, you know, women have career experiences that are you know, very jarred. You know, women exit and enter their careers. You know, we shouldn't be surprised if Taylor Swift chooses to do that or not.
You mean if she has kids, especially with this athlete husband?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you read Claudia Golden's book, Career and Family, then
and Claudia's been on the show. She just won the Nobel Prize for economics.
Yeah, and so Claudia would argue that, you know, Taylor's generation believes that they can have both career and family, and they're not going to exit their careers to have their children, but they do end up having to slow down. And I'm one of them who had to slow my career down. So it's just a natural kind of force of being female. And you know, I think no matter what Taylor decides to do with her career, you know, she won't stop being a creative. She won't stop innovating in the space of connecting with her audience and her fans. You know, so, I mean, the sky's the limit for her, just like maybe it is for the rest of us.
Sky's the limit for Swiftynomics. Finally, I have to admit, Misty, this is shameful of me. I don't really know her music, and I'm clearly not a fan, a little bit skeptical. What's the best thing to listen to? If you could find one song that somehow captures Taylor Swift as an artist that would even win a cynic like me over, what would it be?
Yeah. So again, I think the reason why there's kind of this cult following with her is that she taps into experiences that aren't often described in the larger level of society. And so I always recommend that people listen to two songs next to each other, two songs together. The first one is The Man, which is from her Lover album. And the second song is Mad Woman, which is from Folklore. And both of those songs speak to the experience of women who try to, be successful and have careers. But The Man speaks to it from, this is how women see their climb up. This is the frustrations that women experience with their climb up. And Mad Woman is the flip side. So it's how society sees women who try to climb up. And so, listen to those two together. You won't regret it. And maybe it'll give you a little bit of insight into why her fan base is so strong.
Well, I would play one of those songs as the outro for this show, but I think I'd probably hear from I'm not going to say Travis Swift, Taylor Swift's lawyers. Congratulations, Misty. The book is out this week. Very entertaining and also smart analysis of Taylor Swift in Swiftynomics. Congratulations. And we will be expecting much more Swift from you in the future. Misty Heggeness, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.